Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. When we talk about World Cup favorites, England hasn't been mentioned. What's gone wrong? The golden generation has passed us, but can these young and upcoming talents rise to the occasion and bring England back to where they want to be? Can they trust Harry Kane? Or is Dele, Alli, and Raheem Sterling the real deal? And what about the center backs? Who is going to play there? And can they offer proper protection for an England side that are desperate for international glory? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down what system suits England best. So for the first time in over a decade, when we look at England, we actually feel like they could live up to the hype that does surround them. No one's tipping them to be World Cup favorites. No one's tipping them to win the World Cup. And even in the country alone, expectations are low. When we look at what they did in the international friendly against Italy, against Holland, albeit two sides that aren't in the World Cup, there were signs of optimism there. But when we look at the board, we have England in a 3-5-2. Harry Kane is not there. They played the system on both nights, and when we judge it, there just seems to be something wrong. When they play a 3-5-2, and we know they're going to play a three-man backline, they just don't have enough to really cut it in the final third and in midfield. We could talk about England's issues at the back and who's going to play there. We're unsure. We could talk about the midfield in a whole, and we really assess it as the weak link in this English side. And then we look at the attacking options, and that's the bright spark of this English side. So many young talent, players that are doing well in the Premier League, and players that could blossom this summer if they have the opportunity and the system to allow them to do that. When we look at the 3-5-2, we saw Vardy and we saw Sterling. We saw Rashford and we saw Sterling. The issue with the 3-5-2, that England play, is that it's so easy to neutralize what they do. With the 3-5-2, you're heavily reliant on the wingbacks, and we saw both systems really nullify the wingbacks, and there wasn't really any creativity from that aspect. When we look at the midfield, you need something from there, and that's the weak spot. You have Dyer, you have Henderson, you could throw in Ox, you could throw in Lingard, but again, you need something from them, and teams were able to press them off the park, and it wasn't really a good showing from them. Yes, Lingard did break in field, and he did try to join the attack, and he did score a goal. That is key, but in terms of their overall play, there wasn't enough chances created from the English side. And then when you go up front, they're just too easy to mark. Yes, Sterling's going to drop deep. Yes, Sterling's going to drop wide. But what do you get from the sole man that's going to be up against two or three? Vardy likes to break into the channels. Rashford as well. Mind you, Harry Kane, if fit, is going to start. The 3-5-2 just doesn't give England enough going forward to justify that role. It's not to justify that system, and it's not to say that they can't play a three-man backline, but it just feels like they would be so much better in a 3-4-2-1. When you look at the 3-5-2, both sides were able to really neutralize what they were trying to do. We look at how Holland did it. Holland obviously pressed with the two men up front, or they sat back with the two. And you obviously have a spare man. But it was 3-5-2 against 3-5-2. So even if they did press high, you'd have the wing backs push onto the wing backs. You have the midfield get into the midfield, and then Holland would have a spare man at the back. We saw Sterling try to get involved, but England didn't create much in that aspect. When it was 4-3-3 against 3-5-2, what Italy played, it was a bit different. Italy pressed from the front. They had the front three press, and then they had the midfield come in, and then the fullbacks kind of get a bit higher. What really messed Italy up and what really saw them struggle was the fact that the midfield isn't that mobile. They weren't protecting the lines well. And when they did press high, there were gaps that Sterling was able to drop into and get the ball behind Jorginho, run past Jorginho. And Sterling was a key man, picking up the ball, drifting into the channels. He created chances for Vardy. He created the goal for Vardy. He ended up drifting out left, created a chance for the overlapping Ashley Young. Sterling is a lock for this side. But again, if all you need to do is possibly play 3-4-2-1, which just looks like a better system. There's so many questions as to who's going to play wingback, who's going to play center back. But when you look at it as a whole and you look at England's group, they have Belgium, they have Panama, they have Tunisia. Two of those teams are going to sit deeper. Whether it be in a 3-man backline, a 5-man backline, there are going to be players behind the ball. And that's going to be pivotal. It's going to be narrow. It's going to be tight. And if you play a 3-5-2, what are you going to get there? They're going to be able to mark out the wing players. And what are you going to get from the central midfielders? One, England lacked talent in that area. You have Dyer, you have Henderson, you have Ox, but who else do you really have? A Lallana, who hasn't really played that much. Wilshere, who's in and out of injury as well. We haven't seen Harry Winks in a while. Who is going to step into that role? Yes, you could play Lingard there, but is he really a central midfielder? Can he be overrun? We saw it in the Champions League this season against Sevilla. Can he be trusted in those bigger games against quality talent later on in the tournament? 3-4-2-1 just seems a bit better for them, and against teams that sit a bit deeper, you have a bit more variation. You have the midfield of Dyer and Henderson, and realistically, if you could throw Henderson, you could throw Dyer back into center defense. England have a mobile center back, so it's not an issue if they were to play a Henderson and an Oxlade-Chamberlain, or a Henderson and a Wilshere, because they need more. They could use Henderson's sideway passing. His diagonal passing isn't that reliable, but he can connect it on the rare occasion. Perhaps they need the balance of Wilshere being able to dribble past opponents. They need Oxlade-Chamberlain storming into these areas there to get on the ball before turning and running at goal. They need something in that midfield with Henderson, and with those teams sitting a bit deeper, they can push the wing backs forward. And why is that so key that now you'd feel like the wing backs could pose a threat? Well, with these two, because when you have the 3-5-2, you don't have players drifting out wide. You don't have the combinations. There were very few combinations throughout these two games where England were able to get cross into the box, were able to combine in those areas and really make an impact. But when you have Kane, who's an all-rounder, who drops deep, who runs into the channels, he works hard, he has a great understanding with Dele Alli. Kane drops, Alli charges forward. Alli drops, can link play with a player that can send Kane forward in behind, and that's a great option. And then you have Raheem Sterling, who offers something totally different. Whether he's playing on the left or playing on the right, he could drift out wide, he could start out wide and drift infield, he could skip past players. It just seems like there's so much more balance if they play a 3-4-2-1. They have wingbacks that could play there, whether they want to go with Trippier and Rose, whether they want to give Bertrand an opportunity, Ashley Young, whether they want to keep Kyle Walker at center back and have him shift over for Trippier when he goes forward. England don't look too shabby. They have that system in play to break down Tunisia and Panama. 3-4-2-1 looks like the way to go. They could bring on Lingard, they could bring on Rashford, they could bring on Lallana as super subs. And if they go deeper into the competition and they want to play a 3-5-2, they have the players to play on the counterattack, but they don't even need to do that. If they want to play deeper against a side like Belgium, who are going to probably play in a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, you have to look at it as this. Will get them set into stone. They can defend in a narrow 5-4-1 and then have Alli and have Sterling push forward. Or if they want to play the 3-5-2, they could have Sterling and Kane play up front, something like we saw with Spurs where Son and Kane played, and you could have Sterling bombing forward. You can have Alli play as an exterior central midfielder and charge forward, if not Lingard. And there's so many different options for them, but it just looks like with their group and two teams that are looking to sit deep, England have to break those teams down. And why not 3-4-2-1? You add an extra player in that midfield zone, and like I said, when those teams sit a bit deeper and you play that 3-4-2-1, they're gonna have to defend even deeper because you're gonna have these two players drifting into these midfield zones, trying to find space between the lines before turning and trying to slide Kane into those areas. And if it's not that, then Sterling will try to run into those areas, or we have Dele Alli's late runs, and he has proven to be a reliable goal scorer. But let me know what you guys think. Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the InnerViews.